what? Intro. It's intro time. Shush. Everyone shut up. But
LC.
should we jump into our first story? Are you guys excited? Tell me, give me your war face.
Let's. This is my war face.
I want to call you. What's that? What's that Vince Vaughn scene? Oh my god, I fucked it up. It's the Vince Vaughn scene when he's talking about I'm gonna call you like Indian or something, or I'm gonna call you are you guys not at all with me on this?
No idea what you're talking about.
Vince Vaughn plays like a drill sergeant in a movie, and I think it's Hacksaw Ridge. It's the one
I
where
haven't seen it.
okay, then I'm just fucking up here. I am so sorry to people who are boo talks. You suck. You suck, nerd. All right, let's jump into our first story. We have got to be talking about XDefiant. You know that was going to be what we were leading with because this channel's relationship with XDefiant goes back a ways. Goes back over the years since it's been out. We played the early access. We played the closed beta. We promoted the series. We actually got like the exclusive like artwork and stuff that they were giving to content creators who were trying to promote the series. And I was singing this video game's praises when it was first starting to come out. And it was hearkened as the Call of Duty killer, the COD killer, because everyone at that point was so pissed off. Not everybody. There's I don't know why I'm feeling the need to give a qualifier to that, but you had a lot of Call of Duty fans who were just pissed off with how Call of Duty was working. They were releasing buggy games. They were switching up the gameplay to really prioritize the Warzone experience over the multiplayer experience. They were getting rid of campaigns or doing a bad job with campaigns. And they were also getting into identity politics with the BLM stuff, with the LGBT stuff. And it was just getting
immersion-breaking skins.
Immersion-breaking skins. It was too much. And a lot of people were like, I'm just done. I actually, after Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, I just, like, I played Cold War and enjoyed that plenty fine. But then I just stopped. I took this last October pre-everything here with XDefiant and pre-Black Ops 6, I did buy Modern Warfare 3 in order to game with my brother, and that was a birthday request of his. So it was that's what that was. But it was not something I actually wanted to play, but I had a very fun time playing with him. We had a good experience. It was a very, very fun. But I had been a part of that boycott of Call of Duty. I was like, I'm never picking up another Call of Duty game. And when I started seeing news about XDefiant first coming out, it was actually looking like they were marketing themselves as a COD killer. You had Ubisoft, which was I wouldn't say they didn't have issues, and people didn't have reasonable concerns about Ubisoft being the ones to make it, but you had hope that another big studio was taking on the first-person shooter experience and going to give us a relatively complete, enjoyable experience with a first-person shooter. And what everybody really wanted from this was just an OG Call of Duty experience. I think everyone had reasonable understanding that it was not going to be exactly like that, but that was the goal, right? That was the plan. That's what the fans wanted, was we wanted an OG COD experience, and Ubisoft was going to try to deliver, and they hearkened to the name COD Killer. Well, that failed spectacularly. And I turned from one of this game's biggest supporters to one of this game's most vehement critics, because once we started seeing once we got past the early access and we got into like the closed beta, and then we got into the early access, and then once we came to launch, it was more and more obvious as time went on, even after the delay, because they had like almost a year where they put it off as well. It was more and more obvious this was just going to be a hero shooter, that it was going to be every character has custom perks and stuff like that that makes them unique. You can min-max your team by comboing those. Some of the abilities are super broken, so you would see all characters running the spider bot, or all characters running the flame, the Molotov, all sorts of stuff like that. And it got super annoying incredibly quick. There were also bad mechanics, but like B-hopping was a big problem in the game, because like the hit markers, like you'd get hit markers. The time to kill was super high, so it was really hard to get kills in a reasonable amount of time, especially if the targets were moving as much as they were allowed to in it. in the beginning.
Unless you got the one-shot sniper.
You got the one-shot sniper. Exactly. There's so many issues that happened with that game in the early access and in the first release. Now, to XDefiant's credit, their community engagement was really good. Their community engagement was really good. They couldn't change what they had built. They couldn't go back and turn the clock back. And I think what they had to work with, they did the best they could with what they had to work with. I don't blame the community managers at all for what happened here. It was a faulty game. And I think the community managers, like on X, I followed them all. They were talking about like the season updates. They were talking about revisions they had made to the game. They were talking about new maps they were releasing. I think the community managers did everything they possibly could to mitigate the damage that was done, because Ubisoft had a mandate from the audience that they wanted an OG COD experience, and they decided to instead make a hero shooter. And I'm not at all... I think that this was just a miscommunication between the fandom and the studio, because I think the fandom was very, very clear about what they wanted from Ubisoft in this game, and Ubisoft didn't connect the dots. They were like, oh, but we'll also give them this and also give them that. And they over-delivered, and it underperformed. So here's the
Like Ubisoft has been kind of just quitting also. Like they could put in the extra effort to make it work.
I think
Well, they're dying as a studio, so
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And that's because they're quitting on games that have potential, and they're just like, it didn't make this much money.
I think XDefiant falls out of that category specifically. Like, first off, I don't disagree with your sentiment that, yes, Ubisoft is really ceding ground when they shouldn't be on games that could still be successful if they just got their shit together and just understood what their community was built on, like as far as like what their fans actually want. I think they could. The problem with XDefiant is that they if they were interested in keeping the game going, which they should still, I don't know. We have two stories that will cut, two more articles to pull up on this, but I don't think XDefiant could ever have been successful, because the audience that they needed in order for this game to survive, from a financial aspect, the audience they needed was the audience that was saying, we want an OG COD experience, and they delivered the wrong thing. As much as I appreciate what the community managers were doing as far as like great communication with the audience, trying to build better maps, trying to fix the bugs, you don't like...
God, their maps suck.
Yeah, I don't want a hero shooter. I wanted a Call of Duty alternative. I wanted an arcade shooter with... I didn't have any unreasonable expectations. I don't think Slim did either, because Slim was with me on like the early access gameplay, and then we forced Cody to play that one time he didn't want to. So we had
the game 4 different times.
Exactly. So I mean, I think that they missed the mark so wide on this, and I think that the audience who would be receptive to a hero shooter is too small. I think that the audience who want a hero shooter aren't big enough to sustain this game on their own. And the people who wanted an OG COD experience are not coming back, and they're not going to be given what they want. If XDefiant removed all of the perks, if they nuked all the perks, you had simple weapon customization, and I'm not greedy, like I'm just talking maybe like 2-3 scopes, maybe different magazines to extend, like to increase your mag design, like the Modern Warfare 4 weapon customization, like 5 guns in each category and like 3 attachments for each like attachment class. I mean, something very, very small. Something very, very simple.
Another problem is that this game was gonna die regardless because of how well they did with Black Ops 6.
True.
So Call of Duty kind of had a big comeback.
And
I'm still playing Black Ops 6, so
I got everything I wanted from Black Ops 6. Everything I've been complaining from Call of Duty for a while, I got from Black Ops 6, except, Matt, your point earlier about like the skins breaking immersion. I still think that's a little stupid, but as far as like, I don't think all of these skins belong in here, but I understand what's happening. I understand it's Activision trying to get as much grinding coin out of this as they can. It's one of their
Fortnite's fault.
Yeah. It's Fortnite's fault, exactly. But I got almost everything I wanted out of a Call of Duty experience from Black Ops 6, and I think they rebuilt a fair amount, not all of their goodwill, but I think they rebuilt a lot of their goodwill, And so I think the door is closing on competitors who are trying to take advantage of the anxiety against Call of Duty, which was, this game being called the COD killer. I think the fact that the fandom for Call of Duty is starting to gravitate back towards Call of Duty, you missed your window to create a competitor. That's what I think. If it's cheap, okay, cool, that's a good start. But you would need this game to actually be competitive with Call of Duty. You would need to go back as far to basics as you possibly could in order to start. And at that point, what are we doing? Like, that's where I'm at. We would need Call of Duty to make more flops before this game would have a legitimate shot at taking back the fandom. Unless the argument is there are enough people who want hero shooters and a new hero shooter. I don't think that audience is big enough.
I think it is.
It is, but it's just got like this, like, to be a hero shooter, you almost need like this oversaturated, like colorful, very well designed, like art style, kind of like Rivals. But
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, we could bring up I was like, let me pull up the heroes again. Let me pull up some of the heroes. Like, yeah, you got really, really well designed characters, and really good optimization between abilities and really good variety in abilities. Yeah, XDefiant failed.
Getting at here is, so XDefiant is not a bad game, first off, and for games like For Honor, which probably have like 5,000 concurrent players every day, XDefiant, Ubisoft is looking at it and saying it's so bad, it's performing so horribly that we have to take the servers, like we have to bring it down. But For Honor, which all three of us here agree is a good game.
Oh, I love it.
They put effort into reviving that. Like, they could have just pulled the plug however many years ago. What was that, like 5-6 years ago? If not more.
I see what you're saying.
It came out.
I see what you're saying.
So, like, why didn't they just try to develop it into having its own identity? It doesn't have to dominate. It doesn't have to do better than Call of Duty. It doesn't have to be the Call of Duty killer. That phrase in itself, only Call of Duty is going to kill itself.
Right.
It's way too big.
I think
no other game is going to come in here and just be like, yep.
And I got
like
that.
Overwatch did, because Overwatch ended up killing itself.
Well, and I got that's a sentiment I've heard from a lot of people when we were talking about XDefiant and the COD killers. Like, you can't take down Call of Duty with a game like this. I was like, you're misunderstanding the point. It's not that we need it to kill Call of Duty, because, and I this wasn't my first thought, but to your point, Matt, you're correct. These big studios have to like self-immolate almost. It's like have to set themselves on fire. We didn't need that. We needed a competitor that could steal. If XDefiant took, what's a reasonable amount? If XDefiant took 5% of the market share from Call of Duty, that would be enough to sustain XDefiant and grow that franchise significantly. You like 5% of Call of Duty's player base just migrating over to a game like XDefiant is enough to build XDefiant up. Then you go fast forward 3 years and they've taken 10%. Like, Google has so many competitors for a search engine, yet they're never going to be less than like 90% of the market share, 80% of the market share, because you also have to consider that YouTube is also technically a search engine, and it's as big or bigger than Google as a like search engine to search engine. And then you have Bing, you have DuckDuckGo, you have all these other search engines, you have all these other search engines. They're never going to steal more than like 5%. They don't need to. They only need to steal 5% to be relevant, to be effective,
stable. Exactly.
You only need that much of the market share to sustain yourself. Exactly. So I think I understand COD Killer was definitely it definitely set a wrong expectation in people's minds as far as what we were talking about as people who are trying to promote the game. But I mean, I said this very early on. We didn't have an expectation that this was literally going to end Call of Duty. That was not what we even wanted. We wanted competition, variety, and we wanted our OG arcade shooter experience back. Call of Duty said they were never going to give that back to us, so some of us left, and we didn't have another option. And then, because even Call of Duty was going back and killing all of these old server hosting platforms that were operating on third-party server hosting platforms. So Call of Duty went back and shut down the Black Ops 2 servers that were being hosted by, oh God, I'm never going to remember the names of the actual hosting platforms. But yeah, you had a bunch of third-party entities that were hosting multiplayer lobbies for these OG Call of Duty games, and Call of Duty went through and just killed them all. So you couldn't go back and have a multiplayer experience on OG Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare, Call of Duty 4, World at War. You couldn't go back to those old games and actually have a multiplayer experience, and that was intentional. And
what they need to do is like, instead of saying there's a Call of Duty killer, which is like, you know, we all imagine, oh, they're bringing down Activision, good luck with that. They need to change it, like the phrasing, to like killing the urge to play Call of Duty, because that's what I look for in FPS. If I get tired of Call of Duty, I've mentioned it before, I play Hunt Showdown, which is like the polar opposite
right
of fucking Call of Duty, dude. I got a janky ass bolt action rifle with 5 rounds to spare versus a 60 round mag with 300 rounds to spare. It's like, give me a game that kills the urge to play Call of Duty. I don't want that instant satisfaction. I want a slow burn with like rewarding mechanics within the game. Call of Duty is all just instant satisfaction. Boom, 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 boom. Every 5 seconds, something's happening.
Well, okay, so I want to clarify, like, just what you're comparing.
Need a different dopamine trip.
But Call of Duty has evolved, right? So I want to know which version of Call of Duty your contention is with. Are you talking about the entirety of the Call of Duty experience from 1 to current generations, or are you talking about the modern version of Call of Duty where it's slot machine mechanics? Because I mean, if I said that I want to go back to
season 1.
Well, if I said I want to have a first-person shooter, arcade shooter experience, and I say like Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 1, are you talking about that as well? Are you saying that mentality is also an issue? Like we should get away from all arcade shooter Call of Duty experiences going back to the OG? I just want to be clear about which iteration of COD you're talking about.
Everything past Warzone Season 1, because let's even the introduction of more than 100 players, that means you're always getting into a fight. There's not that slow burn of like,
right.
We'll take an extreme example of PUBG, where it's basically a running simulator. You get in one gunfight, you're dead. Oh, right. Cool. Yep. Let me go back to the lobby and just redo this. But when you win those gunfights, it feels good. Like a battle royale with a classic mechanic of even dropping it down to like 50 players, like the feel of never being safe. If I get complacent, I am dead. Sucks. But it's also like engaging, because you're like, they could be anywhere. They could be in this bush. They could be in this tree. You go play Warzone right now, every building, there's someone in there.
Well,
every building. You
guys will remember, sorry, I was pulling up I think you guys will remember this picture here, block, from Call of Duty COD 4 Modern Warfare. Time to kill in this map was really low in the OG COD experience. You could actually run like the perimeter of the map and survive. You can get into fights, but you could survive. Then you could find a corner to camp. You will live a fair amount of time on this map versus, say, other maps in Call of Duty. I mean, map design also was a big part of the time to kill experience and what made COD fun. So bad map design plays a small role in this. I think the mechanics play a bigger role, to your point. But I think that this experience with Block and with all these OG COD maps and with just the older COD where you could run around the map. I mean, there's Overgrown was a huge map. Even Crash. I mean, Crash is a huge map. You can run around. You can survive. You can explore some of the map before finding an encounter, and then you have a legitimate chance to win. Your chance to win is still good because the mechanics you were limited by the mechanics of the game, not the mechanics of the game were limited by. So modern mechanics allow for so much abuse of like mobility, right? Like if you can move better, you will survive encounters. Well, some players want to just shoot. They want the same balance of like the mobility limited the skill ceiling such that everyone was still on the same playing field, and it didn't feel like you were just losing at every encounter because the other guy could hit the WASD combos better. So I I think that's a part of it as well as in the COD experience is the map design. With every other game, they just do a bad job now. Black Ops
Well, I
6
mean,
Don't have to do a good job.
you can have multiple experiences when it comes to like Black Ops 6. Like if you just want that fast-paced run and gun, you got like Nuketown, you got Hardcore Nuketown, which you can just shoot through buildings and clip people.
exactly. Well, that's
Or you can switch over to Search and Destroy. With Core, you have way more survivability, so you can get into a fight and escape it. And fights last longer, and you're always kind of at the edge of your seat. So,
well, so just to summarize the news of this event is XDefiant is officially shutting down their servers as of June 2025. So they have 6 months left to go before they shut down. A lot can happen in that window of time. Maybe they get a resurgence. I doubt it.
why would you announce it 6 months out though?
That's
Like coming from like a big evil corporate like mindset. It's like, why don't you wait till the last second so you have players and people still spend money on it?
well, I think that's a part of it. So from that Park Place on the same story, Ubisoft CEO Yves fails to provide an update on XDefiant after game's executive producer admitted player counts are down. This story is over a month old. It's from back in October. But the experience that player counts were diminishing, that's been happening. That's old news. You had other games from Ubisoft failing in October and November. Famously, what was the famous Outlaws, Assassin's Creed Shadows is that dead? That's still coming, right? That's still coming in like February.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, but yeah, XDefiant losing their player count was definitely something that was contributing to this. And again, I think their community management did well. They had season plans, they had intentions, they had ideas about growth and a plan. I just think the audience is done. I don't know what it would take to bring them back. With For Honor, they only had bugs to fix. For Honor's mechanics out of the gate were addicting as hell because it was a very skill-based, it was very fun variety. The game modes had a fun game loop so that your experience was the same, but it was still enjoyable every time you did it. The issue with For Honor out of the jump was that they did player-to-player hosting of servers, and you had so many technical issues. All you had to do to rescue that game was double down on fixing the technical issues. Now, I didn't return until like 6 years later, 5 or 6 years later, but that's all the community wanted was for the game to mechanically function. They didn't have a tall order on that one. Unlike XDefiant, which seems to be having
the game.
Well, they have a category error with even what genre they're in and what their audience is. You have they have a crisis of identity about what category they even want to be in. The people who were promoting this game the hardest were actually people who wanted to take market share from Call of Duty. I think you'd agree with me on this though, Matt, is that when this game was being promoted, the most amount of support came from people who had an axe to grind with Call of Duty. It was not the community who wanted another hero shooter, right? Those are two separate categories of supporters. The Call of Duty, the COD killer category, if we want to call it that, was the most outspoken and the most supportive of this project.
Of those two, yes.
Okay. Like that I just wanted to make sure we were at least on the same page with that. Because I think that XDefiant could brand themselves harder as a hero shooter, double down on a lot of what they're doing now, but I don't know what they could fix. They have already fixed the majority of their bugs, as far as I understand it. They've already committed to improving and putting out new maps. They've done a better job with balancing. They've already created what I understand to be the most polished version they reasonably could. So I don't know what else they could do. Like the For Honor comparison, they had an obvious glaring issue, and once that was fixed, there you go. It just took time for people who were burnt out on the game to come back after those issues. But what would you recommend them fix after all of those things I've already mentioned? Like, what would they do next? Just marketing?
Yeah, so I mean, you using the word fix, I don't feel like is suitable because I don't feel like it's a broken game.
Well,
It's not performing the way that they wanted.
Well, just to clarify, I mean the fix would be with the mobility. They had mobility issues, such that b hopping and mobility made the hitboxes so unhittable that it really messed with the player experience. That's just one issue that was there. I would say the balancing of the abilities with the guns was always an issue. And I think they've more or less fixed that. I'm sure there's still a meta in the game where you play this ability with this gun and you will win more often than not. So I'm sure there's still a meta, but balancing was a player killing experience. Like, that was a player would be done because they were sick of getting attacked by the spider or sick of getting burned by the Molotov. And I can pull those two references up, and everyone who's played knows exactly what I'm talking about, because those abilities were abused and they were overpowered, and that needed to be balanced. So I think there will be a meta, but I think that the balancing was so out of whack, and they obviously acknowledged that and went in to fix that. So I would say that those two are specifically what I'm referring to. The map design is another one.
I'm a big believer that not every game is for everybody, first off. So just because, even if it is a majority of the players don't like your game, that doesn't mean it's a bad game. That just means it's not for those players. Again, I'm going to bring up Hunt Showdown. But it's by Crytek, legendary developers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not for everybody. Not everyone wants to crouch walk through a swamp with fucking everything trying to kill you in a voodoo zombie, not like late 1800s setting. That's just not for everybody. They will never have even 5% of the Call of Duty population.
Right, and I think that was
Crytek understands that.
But I think that for XDefiant, that was both a marketing issue that they had going into it, because that was what they were committing to, and they over delivered, and that was what ruined the experience for the people who were expecting a COD killer. So they had a marketing issue out of the gate. They should have really focused on the Tom Clancy's just extended universe. Yep.
And from there, because there's so much in Tom Clancy.
Yeah.
Like, they already have a bunch of the different factions. Just really dial down on that.
I think the marketing issue is the only thing that really held them back from having well, I would say the launch was mostly successful, except that if you cut out the debate about the hero shooter versus arcade shooter, in a vacuum, it was mostly successful. If you remove the obvious issues about the marketing out of jump. But your point about this game not being for everybody, yeah, you're right. You're entirely correct that this game would definitely have done better if they had marketed this game as a Tom Clancy expanded universe and leaned into that. I probably personally would not have played it, because I'm not a huge Tom Clancy, like, I didn't love Rainbow Six Siege at all. And I think what's the Division was probably the one I liked the most, and I actually really enjoyed the Division. So I think if they had leaned into that, you definitely would have seen the
Tom Clancy fanboys.
Yeah, the correct audience.
That would have been your market.
Yeah, and I think it would have been much more successful. And they probably still could get to that if they fixed their marketing on that front. Yeah, but you were definitely marketing to the wrong audience. You would need to take these next 6 months and really try to connect with those guys.
It'd be dope if they had game modes that were like, this is the Splinter Cell game mode, and it's 2 teams of however many people, and they're all just those like super spies. So you have to find the enemy team, like a team deathmatch.
Yep.
In the Splinter Cell universe would be fucking kind of nuts.
That would
that would be fucking crazy.
And you could do that. You could do that with almost all of the universes. Like, you could have you could call it like a universe and just split off into different segments of the Tom Clancy experience. So you could do that with like the Division universe. You could do that with Rainbow Six Siege. You could do that with what you were saying.
And then like a true free for all.
Tom Clancy, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're right. They could recover if they did the marketing correctly. I think they've done everything they can to try to salvage the relationship that they originally wanted with the Call of Duty players. And maybe that was the wrong decision. Maybe they should have just turned over to the Tom Clancy hard fanboys and tried to bring them in instead.
Yeah, I think they're trying to do too many things. Ubisoft as a whole.
Yeah, they definitely have.
Like fucking Rainbow Six Siege is like what 8-year-old game, and it's still in the top 20 streamed games right now.
Right. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's like
Steam game right now.
Well, yeah, and then you have Counter-Strike, which is never gonna fall. The mechanics are too. They've done such a good job of creating a balanced game experience with a loop that is almost addicting. Like getting a kill in Counter-Strike is so addicting because it's entirely skill reward. It's entirely a reward for getting better. And so you see your progression in your own statistics in that game. And the maps are...
Yeah, I mean, it's probably why it's still #1 right now. I mean, concurrent players, it goes Counter-Strike then Dota. There's 400,000 current player difference between the two.
Yeah. Well, and
there's 1.1 million playing Counter-Strike right now.
Well, and I mean, Counter-Strike, I don't think this is true, but just to get it out there into the ether, it's Counter-Strike, obviously created by Valve. I'm pretty sure Valve owns Steam, right? Someone correct me on that. Valve is Valve owns the Steam platform.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure because I was pretty positive, but I wanted
no one out there, but
well, I wanted to make sure before I went too far into it. I was positive, but I needed to just double check, make sure I had that in the correct order. So obviously they get huge money from all of the skins they release. Counter-Strike is one of the biggest esports, definitely has one of the biggest prize pools. And in my experience, one of the most enjoyable to watch. So I mean, Counter-Strike is very, very far from losing any popularity. If anything, I'd say it's on the rise, considering the esports scene. Maybe it's getting oversaturated, but I don't think that's going to take away anything. I think if anything, that's going to continue to build excitement. So, and we'll see who wins with the most prominent platform. But
just a quick side note here.
Yeah.
The finals is number 98 and being played right now. It's in the top 100 still. Finals still going strong.
That's insane. No, I mean, we didn't hear any news about it being shut down or losing player base. I mean, being in the top 100 on Steam is still a huge accomplishment. There's thousands and thousands, there's tens of thousands of games on Steam. So, I mean, that's still a huge accomplishment to remain there even after you've had such a diminishment in player count. But, cool. Good for them. That's pretty cool to hear. I did not know that.
What the fuck is Banana?
Oh, I love that story. Okay,
that's number 5 right now.
Banana is just a game where all you do is go in and you buy a banana for I think it's a penny, and then you own it in the Steam marketplace as some sort of in marketplace token, and then you get you just spam buying bananas and then you just have bananas. I'm pretty sure that's the game. I want to look that up so bad.
Well, you look at it in the screenshots, it just says 1 banana.
Yeah, you're just counting up bananas. But it's I think there was oh my gosh, I think Steam was very close to getting in trouble for that because it was inflating the value of items on the marketplace. Or it was either inflating or deflating. But it had something to do with the interactions with the Steam marketplace, because that's another Valve game where they basically just created the banana icon and then you can farm out the bananas, and I think that was paying Valve huge money. I might be getting some aspects of that story wrong, but people should look into that and get the correct telling of that story, because
it's retarded. There's 107,000 people doing that right now.
I think Asmongold had a video on banana. I'm gonna look. Asmongold banana.
Shit is bananas.
I'm gonna look. I'm just gonna check to see.
I don't want to be a part of the human race
anymore. Asmongold cringe banana unboxing. I might be wrong, so we're gonna pull back on that. I think I might have made it. I made a mistake. No,
deep dive into the banana game.
well, I want to look that story back up again. You reminded me of it. Now I'm super excited to go look into it again, and people should go look at that. The last article we have on the XDefiant story is that back from October again, we had the XDefiant executive producer claims Ubisoft has no plans to shut down after season 4, but admits numbers are down. So this is the admission that we kind of knew player count was diminishing. But this was an actual retort to the idea that they'd be shutting down, and it wasn't a long time ago. It was only like a month and a half ago. So if you're going to, and I think that people are more or less, I think the reason this became an article is because I think people don't believe him. I think people don't believe him that they didn't have a plan to shut down. I mean, it's 6 months out. I feel like they had some internal conversations at this point being like, hey, we have 1 more month, or we have 2 more months, and I want to see our numbers improve. Otherwise, we're not going to have a choice here, and talking about shutting down. I don't think that it's possible that they weren't having that conversation and setting expectations, considering the window of time. I just don't think that's possible. So that's my sense.
Yeah, well,
someone definitely mentioned it.
Yeah. They have
I'm
no
okay with it dying.
Maybe they had no plans to shut down. I mean, could be a good lawyer speak, but maybe they were having discussions about shutting down, but they had no plans to. I mean, that could be a good lawyer speak quote there. But yeah, guys, I think I think XDefiant is. I hope that here's what I want. I want XDefiant to rebrand itself as what you were saying, Matt, and come back as a success. I would like that for XDefiant. I don't have an issue with a game being made that people can enjoy, and I think that there is a room in the marketplace for a Tom Clancy universe expanding game. But I think that they definitely flopped on their original marketing. I think they went for the wrong player base, and they really went way too hard and gave us so much that we did not want or ask for, and it ended up biting them in the ass because people wanted a simple arcade shooter experience, and they gave us a hero shooter, which was not what they were promising. So
Ubisoft's dying. I think they should just focus on Rainbow Six, For Honor, your Assassin's Creeds, and Far Cry. Just those 4, good to go.
What's going to happen here is XDefiant servers are shutting down because XDefiant 2 servers are launching.
You can't do that while I'm drinking water. I mean, it's
all right, guys. Here's our big announcement.
After June 4th, before they shut down.
After 1 year, after 1 year of having XDefiant servers up and running, and with all the popular demand we had, we've decided to bring you guys the beloved sequel to the XDefiant.
Yeah, they're really trying to go for that Call of Duty. It's like release a new one every year.
It hurts because it could happen.
It could. That's the thing about
the same, but different.
It's the same. That's the thing about this timeline is that anything can pretty much happen. We got into the comments on our conversations about Elon Musk's buying of Hasbro. Well, there was a lot of engagement on that one. There was a lot of engagement on that one to talk about. That was crazy. So I mean, anything can happen in this timeline. It's a weird world, but I think
real world.
Weird world.